One thing I've learned tonight, never date an MGS girl. Because we think that these MGS girls, members of the House, were fighting a losing battle in the first half of the debate. Not because they were losing, mind you, but because they are insisting that we continue spending on a field where we cannot possibly increase our productivity. Because members of the House, we've already proven to you in my first speaker that there's no reason for us to continue pouring money into attracting MNCs because this simply doesn't work any longer. So what we think we need to focus on is the question of how best to attract MNCs while supporting our own economy. No, thank you. I'm going to have hell later. So, two issues face the House. First of all, what are the direct economic benefits of spending on SMEs? And secondly, what are the benefits of MNCs? So first of all, the direct benefits of spending on SMEs. Now, if we challenge this idea by saying that, by giving them money, what's going to happen is we're going to develop a kind of a crutch mentality, that the taking risk mentality isn't going to exist in the first place. But members of the House, we think that all entrepreneurs must make a cost-benefit analysis. When they want to start a business, there are immense obstacles standing in your way. For instance, you have to, in terms of registering and starting a business in the first place, the obstacles are enormous. So what the government can do is help you to overcome these obstacles in the first place. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean, mind you, that these entrepreneurs don't know how to take risks or don't want to take risks. It just means that they have performed the cost-benefit analysis and they have decided that starting a company is very difficult. No, thank you. So what we do is help them to overcome this initial barrier, no, thank you, of starting a company. We help them to start a company, and after that, we don't see why they won't be willing to take risks in the future. No, thank you. Next, about how helping hands already exist. Now, it is true there are government policies in place that are intended to help SMEs in the status quo. But what we think these policies ultimately achieve is that they keep SMEs alive. What we want to do is further the policy. We want to push SMEs even further. For example, just this morning, as released in the newspapers, no thank you, we saw a policy that would allow SMEs a government branch would be providing even greater assistance for SMEs. This came in the form of a tax scheme, that they can draw from, and we think that this is ultimately a way of furthering how SMEs are doing. Because in the status quo, if SMEs can survive, we want to be able to push them further, and this is what our team is standing for. So on our second point of contention about the benefits of MNCs. Now, as we've already said, yes, we accept that they have benefits. The question is, how do we draw them in? Now, the closing opposition says that we need to spend more on these MNCs because we are losing our competitive edge. But members of the House, we don't think we are losing our competitive edge. We think this competitive edge simply cannot exist anymore. Why so? Because we think we have already maximized the areas in which we can attract MNCs. We think our geographical and political position already attract the niche market that we're looking for. Hold on a moment. And we think that for this reason, we cannot possibly expound on this advantage any further. Yes, sir.
So if we give MNCs more tax breaks, if they give them more government grants...
Sir, for your information, Singapore has the second lowest corporate income tax rate in the entire world. How are we going to push it any further? From 17% push down to 15%? What kind of a difference will this make? We think that Singapore already attracts the MNCs we want to attract. No, thank you. We think that fundamentally, your greater tax breaks and your other government support schemes aren't going to pull any more in it because other countries can do it better. No, thank you. And other countries are already attracting the MNCs that they're looking for. So fundamentally, what we think is that Singapore is already attracting as many MNCs as it can in this respect. So what we're saying is that the best way to join MNCs is to groom local SMEs such that when an MNC comes into the country, they already have a base to work with. In other words, we provide the fundamentals. In other words, if let's say GlaxoSmithKline wanted to come into Singapore, they could already work with existing SMEs without having to source for people who can source for skills. No, thank you. Source for skilled labor in Singapore. We think that fundamentally these MNCs already can come straight into the country and start their operations immediately without all of the barriers of such as a lack of a skilled workforce. So we think that in this respect, SMEs provide for MNCs what they're looking for. So fundamentally, we think the best way to join MNCs, as my first speaker proved, is to groom local SMEs. So what we achieved, no thank you, are both, one, the direct economic benefits of spending on SMEs, and secondly, on the benefits of MNCs themselves. So in summary, what happened in this debate, no thank you, was that in opening, we think that the benefits of the opening teams prove that SMEs themselves are inherently beneficial because of innovation, whereas the opening opposition only proved that MNCs are beneficial, without proving that by spending, we will attract more. So fundamentally, already from the start, we saw that the benefits of SMEs are far more concrete than the benefits of MNCs because we can contribute to the grooming of SMEs. Then, in the later half of the debate, we proved that even if we agree with all the benefits of MNCs, we think that the best way to pull in these MNCs is, in fact, to groom local SMEs. And by grooming local SMEs, we both, one, directly improve the economy through promoting entrepreneurship, and secondly, we can draw in MNCs. And fundamentally, members of the House, we think that for these reasons, it is better to spend on grooming local SMEs than on attracting foreign MNCs.
Thank you, Darren.
This debate has never been about whether SMEs are more beneficial or MNCs are more beneficial. This debate has been about where we need to spend more money. And what Team EDB has put forth to you is that when we spend more money on MNCs, we do what's best for SMEs as well as MNCs. So these are the two issues today. What's best for SMEs and what's best for MNCs. So let's first talk about what's best for SMEs. Now, Avery told you already how, first of all, there's no need to spend more because private investors already exist. And secondly, he told you how this, when you spend more, what you do is you attract the wrong class of entrepreneurs. So what Team SME came up to us and told us is that private investors are insufficient to allow SMEs to thrive, to attract more MNCs, to fund more SMEs. But we think there's a fundamental problem with that. Because when they think that private investors today are not spending on SMEs with potential, and therefore SMEs with potential are dying, they're fundamentally not recognizing how the private sector works. Because the private sector invests and capitalizes on potential business ventures as long as they deem them to be profitable. And if the private sector is not spending on these SMEs, then that clearly means that these SMEs don't have business potential. They aren't good business ideas, and therefore the government shouldn't be investing on these SMEs that the private sector has already rejected. We think the only areas where the government does need to spend money is when these businesses have proven to have benefit, and therefore we supplement the private sector. So in this circumstance, quite clearly, the private sector is sufficient, and furthermore, it's the best way forward. Yes, sir.
So we're talking about encouraging more SMEs to start up rather than discussing the SMEs that are already existent.
Thanks, sir. Okay, so this goes very nicely onto my second idea under this big contention. Whether we need to attract more entrepreneurs. Because what they seem to prefer is the quantity of entrepreneurs. How many people are willing to start up businesses? Whereas what we prefer is the quality of entrepreneurs. We think when they tell us that you spend more money to attract more entrepreneurs, you're paying these people to be entrepreneurs. Because we think that the existing obstacles and the toughness of trying to set up a business attracts the people who truly believe in the idea and who are truly willing to take the risk because they know they can make money, they can start a good business. And what you do when you spend more money to attract these entrepreneurs is you attract people who aren't inherently risk-taking, who aren't business-minded and confident of their ideas, and therefore, quite clearly, what you're doing is you're creating a class of entrepreneurs who are going to set up businesses that will eventually fail and collapse. So quite clearly, we create the better scenario for entrepreneurs and for SMEs. No, thank you, sir. And in fact, sometimes we think that the government doesn't need to step in, it doesn't need to help all these SMEs, and that it should stay there and should err on the side of caution and spend less readily, because sometimes we think failure and the crucible of failure is a good thing. It's like the Chinese proverb about the phoenix rising from the ashes, whereby adversity is the critical moment whereby companies become stronger and become more resilient. So quite clearly, our policy is best for SMEs. Now let's talk about the second idea. Who best attracts MNCs? Now, they gave us two ideas here. They told us that, first of all, corporate advantages are being eroded. There's no benefit in corporate advantages. And then they told us that taxes can't go any lower. So first of all, is our competitive advantage being eroded? Yes, it is. No longer are we as attractive to countries seeking knowledge-based industries because countries like China and India have a very skilled labor force. Countries like Dubai and Qatar have a very skilled labor force. So that's no longer where we can attract these people. While we still have it, where we can differentiate ourselves from countries like Dubai, from countries like Qatar, from countries like China and India are our taxes. And here they told us that we can't lower our taxes because they're already pretty low. That So let me get this straight. We can't we can't lower our taxes because somehow Hong Kong and Ireland and all these other countries have taxes lower than us. I think that's the exact reason why MNCs are going to these countries like Hong Kong and Ireland, because taxes are low there and they have the same advantages we do. So what we need to do is go lower. And we think that 17.5% is quite clearly no incentive for MNCs to come in, as opposed to the 14.5% in Hong Kong. Quite clearly, we best attract MNCs, we best attract SMEs. The motion stands.
Thank you, Rohan.